Warning. The following video discusses sensitive true crime cases, so it includes graphic details and topics like murder, sexual assault, child abuse, animal cruelty, detailed descriptions, crime scene photos, and/or audio. Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Please use at your own risk. Viewer discretion advised. The purpose of this video is for documentary and educational purposes only.
5 confirmed murders, 2 survivors, over 50 years unsolved. The Zodiac Killer terrorized California from 1968 to 1970 and possibly beyond. But imagine a letter arriving at your newspaper. Handwritten, sealed. Inside, a confession and a cipher no one can crack. I like killing people because it is so much fun. This is how the Zodiac announced himself to the world. Not through crime scenes, not through witness testimony, but through words, through symbols, through a communication designed to prove he was smarter than everyone hunting him. He sent ciphers to newspapers. He taunted police. He created a symbol that would echo through decades of American true crime. But who was he? What drove him? And how did he become one of history's most infamous phantoms? Welcome to the Phantoms Notes channel. I'm your host, and today we're examining every detail of this case, from the crime scenes to the psychological profile to the suspects. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries, hit that subscribe button and check out the other stuff on our hub. But now, this story demands your attention. Lake Herman Road, first crime scene. December 20th, 1968, 10:15 p.m. Near Berryessa, Solano County. David Arthur Faraday, 17 years old, engineering student. A kid with a future. Betty Lou Jensen, 16, straight A student. Homecoming attendee. The kind of girl who is supposed to grow up, go to college, get married, live a normal life. They'd been dating 3 months. That December night, David borrowed his parents' brown Rambler station wagon. Just a normal date. Just 2 kids stealing time alone under starlight. The rain had begun, a light drizzle. The night was completely dark. No streetlights, no houses nearby. Just the soft patter of rain and the hum of the car's heater. Then a car pulled up behind them. A man emerged. No mask, no hesitation. He walked directly to the driver's window and opened fire. A .22 caliber rifle. Pop, pop. 2 shots to David's head. David slumped over the steering wheel, dead instantly. The killer then walked to Betty Lou's side and fired again. And again. And again. 5 times. She tried to flee. We know this because her body was found 28 feet down the embankment. But the killer tracked her, cornered her, and executed her at point-blank range. Officer Nicholas Wilgaz arrived at the scene at 11:22 p.m. He found David dead in the driver's seat. Betty Lou's body lay bleeding in the dirt below. Both teenagers were gone. What's critical here is the signature. This wasn't a robbery. Wallets were untouched. This wasn't a sex crime. Betty Lou remained clothed, unviolated. This was pure, calculated murder for the sake of killing. The killer left no fingerprints. The rain had destroyed footprints. Ballistics showed rare Winchester Western .22 ammunition with copper coatings, specific, planned ammunition, not random bullets from a box. But here's where the investigation fails. The initial response was incompetent. Wilgaz documented the scene but failed to secure it properly. No forensic team called immediately. No crime scene tape. No systematic evidence collection by the time actual investigators arrived hours later. The scene was contaminated. Rain had destroyed potential footprints. The area had been trampled by responding officers. By the time a proper investigation began, the killer had a head start of nearly 12 hours. In 1968, that was an eternity. Blue Rock Springs, the confession and communication breakdown. July 4th, 1969. Vallejo Police Department. Approximately 12:45 a.m. A phone rings. A male voice, calm and measured. I want to report a double murder. Dispatcher, go ahead. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you'll find some kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last Christmas. I'm going to tell you who I am. Dispatcher, who is this? I am the Zodiac. Then he hangs up. The victims, Darlene Farron, 22 years old, a mother with a young daughter at home. Michael Mageau, 19, a high school acquaintance. Around midnight, they'd parked in her blue Valiant at Blue Rock Springs Golf Course. Michael's testimony, given in his hospital bed, heavily medicated but coherent, is our only window. Flashlight hit my face. Blinded me. I can see a man, stocky build, about 5 feet 8 inches, crew cut, probably 195 to 200 pounds. He shines the flashlight inside the car. Says nothing. Just silence. Then he fires a 9mm semi-automatic through the window. The first shot hits Darlene. I fall on top of her. He walks around the car. I can hear his footsteps crunching on gravel. He comes back to the window, mutters something like, I want to kill you. Fires more shots. I'm trying to cover Darlene, trying to shield her, but I realize she stopped responding. So I go limp. I play dead. The man fires a few more rounds into the car, then he leaves. Darlene Farron was declared dead on arrival at Kaiser Hospital. 4 9mm rounds with catastrophic internal damage. Michael survived with grazing wounds. Now, here's the critical failure. The dispatcher didn't take the confession seriously. The call was logged, filed, but there was no immediate response. No emergency alert sent to units. No description broadcast. It took 45 minutes for officers to even respond to the murder scene itself. In that window, the killer could have driven anywhere. Could have ditched the weapon. Could have changed clothes. The golden hour of investigation, the first 60 minutes after a crime, was completely wasted. Michael's description was specific. 5 feet 8 inches, stocky, crew cut, 195 to 200 pounds. These details were in the initial police report, but they weren't circulated to other jurisdictions. Vallejo PD kept the investigation compartmentalized. They didn't immediately notify San Francisco. They didn't alert Napa or Solano County. Different police departments didn't communicate. A man matching that description could have been stopped at any point in the following week. But he wasn't. The first letters and Cipher breakthrough. August 1st, 1969. 3 Bay Area newspapers receive nearly identical packages. Each contains a typed letter, printed neatly. 1/3 of a complex 408-symbol cipher. A swatch of fabric, confirmed to be from Darlene Farron's clothes, stained with her blood. The letter reads, This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the young couple last year, in the North Bay. I stabbed a man in Vallejo. To prove this, I sent a blood-stained piece of her clothes. I am the killer of the Vallejo school children. If you do not print this cipher, I will kill again in 24 hours. Here's what's critical. The cipher wasn't random. It was a specific coded message that the killer believed only he could craft. Because in that cipher, if cracked, would be his confession. His philosophy. His mind laid bare on the page. The cipher remained unsolved for 1 week. Then, on August 8, 1969, a high school teacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty sat down to crack it. Using frequency analysis and substitution techniques, basic cryptography tools available in 1969, they broke the 408-symbol code. The decoded message reads, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. I like to kill girls because they are easier to kill than men. Men are harder. They put up a good fight. If you want to know how to catch me, you will have to keep very close tabs on all gas stations. Bye." At the bottom, a new signature, a circle with a crosshair inside. The Zodiac. This cipher wasn't just a confession. It was a manifesto. It was the killer telling the world, "I enjoy what I do. I am smarter than you. You will never catch me." And here's the investigative failure that textbooks ignore. The public cracked the Zodiac's cipher before professional law enforcement did. Local police departments lacked the expertise to decode it. They needed FBI profilers. They needed cryptography experts. They got neither because they were too proud to ask. The hooded attack and survivorship. September 27, 1969, 2:15 p.m. Lake Berryessa State Park. This attack is different because this time someone survives. And survivors change everything. Brian Hartnell, 20 years old, Sacramento State University student, calm demeanor, good memory for details. Cecilia and Shepard, 22 years old, graduate student, intelligent, beautiful, living her best life. They'd chosen Lake Berryessa for a picnic. Perfect California weather, 72 degrees, clear sky, gentle breeze. They were sitting on a blanket near the water, eating, talking, enjoying life. Brian's testimony. "I see this figure approach from the direction of the parking lot. He's walking steadily toward us. As he gets closer, I can make out his appearance. He's wearing a black executioner's hood, like something from a medieval nightmare, with a white circle and cross symbol painted on the chest. In his hands, a .45 semi-automatic pistol and a 10-inch bayonet. He reaches us and says calmly, 'Don't move. Stay still. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want your money and your car keys.' But he's lying. We understand that in seconds. He pulls out rope, pre-cut rope, not just a length he wrapped around himself. He'd brought this with him. He'd prepared this in advance. He ties me down, face first into the dirt. Ties Cecilia the same way. Then he reaches into a plastic bag and pulls out that bayonet. Long, cold, sharp metal. He raises it above his head. What happens next is violence. He stabs Cecilia first. The blade goes in her back. Again. 6 times in the thoracic region, probably puncturing her lungs and diaphragm. She's gasping, screaming, "Brian, he's killing us." Then he turns to Brian. 6 more stabs. Brian's back opens up. Blood pours out, but Brian is alive. Somehow, miraculously, the stab wounds miss critical organs. The killer stands over them, breathing heavily, surveying his work. Then he calmly walks to Cecilia's car, a white Carmen Ghia, and with a marker, he writes on the door. By knife, September 27, 1969. 6 and 7 to die. And his signature, the circled crosshair. He drives off. Brian, bleeding heavily, manages to flag down a park ranger 90 minutes later. Rangers radio for emergency services. Cecilia arrives at the hospital and immediately goes into surgery. She dies October 1st, internal bleeding. organ damage. But Brian survives. And his description, his testimony about the hooded figure, the pre-planned equipment, the methodical nature of the attack, it becomes the richest forensic evidence against Zodiac yet. The bayonet wounds match military K-bar knives. The rope was pre-cut, suggesting he'd planned this specific attack days or weeks in advance. He brought the hood, the weapon, the bayonet, the rope. This wasn't improvisation. This was orchestrated evil. Yet even with Brian's detailed testimony, police had no way to connect this attack to the Vallejo murders. Different jurisdictions. Different initial theories. Presidio Heights, the near capture. October 11, 1969, 9:55 p.m., San Francisco. Paul Lee Stein, 29 years old. Taxi driver. Father of a young daughter. Working the late shift to support his family. A radio call comes in, pick up at Washington and Maple Streets. Paul picks up a male passenger. Details are vague, but Paul was heading to the Presidio area. What happens next occurs in the sight of 3 teenage witnesses across the street. The teenagers see the taxi pull over. They see the passenger window open. They hear, unmistakably, a gunshot. A single, sharp report. The man in the back seat reaches forward and shoots Paul Stein in the head through the window. Point-blank range. Then the killer does something remarkable. He wipes down the interior of the cab with what appears to be a cleaning cloth, methodical, calm, unhurried. He reaches into Paul's wallet, removes papers. He steps out of the cab, completely composed. He then waves down one of the teenage witnesses and calmly asks for directions to the Presidio, as if he were just another tourist asking for help. The witness, terrified, gives directions. The killer thanks him and walks away into the night. Paul Stein is found dead in his cab minutes later. Shot execution style. Wallet ransacked. A partial fingerprint is recovered from the cab door, crucial evidence. But it's incomplete. Not enough for a definitive match. Now here's the moment that defines the entire investigation. Officer Don Falk is patrolling the area and actually spots a man matching the killer's description walking on Jackson Street, just blocks from the murder scene, about 10 minutes after the shooting. Falk's report describes the man as white male, 25 to 30, crew cut, dark jacket. This matches Michael Mageau's description from Vallejo perfectly. Falk becomes suspicious, decides to approach. But here's where the system fails catastrophically. Falk doesn't have a detailed description on his radio. There was no coordinated dispatch system in 1969. He had to rely on memory and gut instinct. The suspect is walking slowly, calmly, not running, not acting guilt-ridden.
He's composed.
Falk approaches. The man provides reasonable answers to questions. Without a specific, verified description, without DNA, without fingerprints in the moment, Falk has no probable cause to arrest. The man walks away. Later, when SFPD pieced together that Stein was killed by a crew-cut white male in a dark jacket, they realized, we had him. Officer Falk had him. And we let him go. SFPD's response? They blamed poor communication. They blamed the radio dispatch system. They blamed insufficient interdepartmental coordination. They blamed everything except the fundamental reality. Police departments were not equipped to apprehend a killer who operated across multiple jurisdictions and left minimal forensic evidence. The Cipher evolution and psychological obsession. After the Stein murder, the letters become more frequent. More brazen. More detailed. November 8, 1969, the 340 cipher arrives at the San Francisco Chronicle. It remains unsolved for 51 years. In 2020, when finally cracked by amateur cryptographers using modern computer algorithms, it reads, "I hope you enjoy trying to catch me. The gas chamber will be a pleasant experience for me. Delusions of grandeur mixed with genuine psychopathy." November 29, 1969, a letter arrives with threats to bomb a school bus full of children. "If you don't do what I say," the killer writes, "I will wipe out a school bus." The letter includes a bomb diagram, crude but functional looking. No bus is ever bombed. Was it a bluff? An idle threat? Or was the killer testing authorities' ability to respond? April 20th, 1970, a 13-symbol cipher is mailed to the Chronicle. It's cracked. "My name is..." The message cuts off. Intentionally incomplete. The killer is teasing. Playing games. June 26, 1970, a 32-page button letter arrives. It includes another bomb diagram, more taunts, references to Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. The Mikado. The killer is educated. He quotes literature. He's intelligent, articulate, composed. By 1971, the killer claims 37 total victims. Police confirm 5 murders and 2 near-fatal attacks. A huge discrepancy. The letters continue through the mid-1970s, becoming increasingly incoherent. Then they stop. The Zodiac goes silent. Psychological profile, childhood trauma and narcissism. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, John Douglas and colleagues, begin profiling in the early 1970s. What emerges is a psychological portrait of profound dysfunction. Demographic profile. White male. Age 25-35 at time of crimes. Likely lives within a 1-hour drive of the Bay Area. Average Ito high intelligence. The ciphers demonstrate mathematical and linguistic capability. Probable military experience. Weapon handling is expert level. Rope work is military grade. Resides with family, specifically, likely with a domineering mother or female relative. Childhood trauma foundation. Here's what's crucial. Serial killers are not born. They are created through trauma, through neglect, through psychological abandonment. FBI data shows that 80% of serial killers report adverse childhood experience scores of 4 or higher. What does that mean? Physical abuse, emotional neglect, an absent or inadequate father figure, humiliation, bullying, rejection. The Zodiac almost certainly experienced severe childhood trauma. Likely scenario: a father absent, either through death, divorce, or emotional unavailability. A mother who is controlling, critical, unable to provide warmth. A childhood marked by isolation, bullying from peers, rejection from girls. Attachment theory, a cornerstone of modern psychology, explains serial killers through the lens of bonding failure. Children who don't form secure attachments to caregivers develop what's called avoidant attachment style. They learn that intimacy is dangerous, that relationships are threats. As adults, they cannot form healthy romantic bonds. They cannot understand social reciprocity. The normal human exchange of emotional vulnerability becomes incomprehensible. But the need for connection doesn't disappear. It transforms. It transforms into a fantasy. A dark fantasy where the killer has absolute power, where victims cannot reject him, where he controls the narrative completely. Why young couples? This is the critical insight. Young couples like David and Betty Lou, like Darlene and Michael, represent what the Zodiac could never have. Intimacy, connection, normalcy. They are living his impossible dream.
So he destroys them.
Not out of lust, not out of random violence. but out of a deep, pathological envy. He is eliminating symbols. He is erasing reminders of his own inadequacy. NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. The ciphers, the letters, the signature symbol, the demands for publication. These are hallmarks of narcissistic personality disorder. NPD is characterized by a grandiose sense of self-importance, a desperate need for admiration and recognition, a fragile self-esteem that collapses under criticism, lack of genuine empathy for others, a tendency to exploit others for personal gain. The Zodiac was undoubtedly bullied as a child,
Called weird. Called creepy.
rejected by girls, mocked by peers. His narcissism is a defense mechanism. By creating the Zodiac persona, by forcing the world to acknowledge him, he is overcompensating for a lifetime of feeling worthless. Every letter he sends is a psychic scream. I matter. I am important. You cannot ignore me. Antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD plus sadism. Beyond narcissism, the Zodiac displays clear antisocial traits. Complete absence of remorse. Willingness to harm others for personal gratification. Deception and manipulation. Thrill-seeking through extreme violence. And, critically, sadism. True sadism, the genuine pleasure derived from inflicting pain, is present in his attacks. The Lake Berryessa stabbing wasn't the quick execution. It was prolonged, multiple wounds. Deliberately designed to maximize suffering while keeping victims alive long enough to comprehend their own deaths. He wanted them to experience terror. He wanted them to know who was in control. The lack of sexual assault is significant. Many serial killers are sex murderers. The Zodiac is not. His gratification comes entirely from power and control. This makes him arguably more dangerous. His motivation is purely psychological, not biological. Schizotypal personality disorder traits. The ciphers, the obsession with symbols. The belief that his circled crosshair has cosmic significance. These suggest schizotypal personality features: magical thinking, obsessive focus on symbols and patterns, paranoid ideation. Notice how his letters have mood swings. Sometimes eloquent and grammatically perfect. Sometimes sloppy and disorganized. Sometimes humorous. Sometimes furiously angry. This volatility suggests underlying mood dysregulation, possibly untreated depression, possibly anxiety, possibly genuine bipolar disorder. A man this damaged, living with this level of internal chaos, would become increasingly paranoid. After the Stein murder, when police nearly caught him, his paranoia likely spiked exponentially. Here's the crucial question: why did the Zodiac stop killing in 1970? The FBI profile offers an answer: fear. A narcissist with a God complex cannot tolerate genuine threat. When Falk nearly arrested him at Presidio Heights, when he realized the system was closing in, his omnipotence fantasy began to crack. He continued the letters, but he stopped the murders. The killings required him to risk capture. The risk was becoming real. A narcissist would rather survive as a phantom legend than risk imprisonment, which would shatter his grandiose self-image irreparably. So he disappeared into the shadows. And he remained there. Suspects and modern investigation. Arthur Lee Allen remains the primary suspect, though he died in 1992 without ever being formally charged. Allen was a convicted pedophile living in Vallejo, matching multiple profile criteria. Oneida Zodiac brand Seiko watch. War-size 10.5 wing walker boots, matching footprints from crime scenes. Lived near Lake Berryessa. Had access to military-grade weapons. Vallejo detectives believed they had their man, so they asked Alan to take a polygraph test. Alan agreed.
And he passed.
Or rather, the results were inconclusive, which the department interpreted as grounds to drop the investigation. Here's the critical failure. Polygraph results in 1971 were unreliable. They still are. A past polygraph doesn't prove innocence. It proves the suspect was calm enough to control his physiological response. By accepting a past polygraph as exonerating evidence, Vallejo PD made a catastrophic error. They never obtained his DNA. They never secured a warrant to search his property. They filed the investigation and moved on. Alan died in 1992, never charged, never tried. In 2021, a group called the Case Breakers claimed they'd identified the killer as Gary Francis Post, based on anagrams in letters and circumstantial evidence. Law enforcement has not confirmed this. Genetic genealogy, using DNA and family trees, continues to hunt for answers. In 2023, new DNA evidence emerged, but it hasn't definitively identified anyone. The case remains technically unsolved. Legacy and conclusion. What this case teaches. The Zodiac case shaped modern criminal profiling. He forced law enforcement to think differently about serial murder. He inspired films, books, podcasts, obsessive amateur detectives. But beyond the cultural legacy, the Zodiac represents something deeper and more disturbing. He represents the archetype of the serial killer, a profoundly damaged human whose childhood trauma transforms into an adult need to control, dominate, and destroy. He was not born evil. No one is. He was systematically broken by circumstance, neglect, and psychological damage. And he weaponized that brokenness against innocence. What's remarkable about this case, what makes it historically significant, is how it revealed systemic vulnerabilities in law enforcement. Jurisdictional chaos. 3 police departments investigating the same killer without coordination. Critical weeks of investigation lost to bureaucratic fragmentation. Technological limitations. Fingerprint databases that couldn't match partial prints. Communication systems that prevented real-time information sharing. Psychological blind spots. An investigative apparatus that lacked behavioral profiling expertise. A system that didn't understand narcissistic pathology. Human error. Officer Falk had the killer within arm's reach and didn't recognize him. Not because Falk was incompetent, but because the system hadn't given him the tools to succeed. Every advancement in law enforcement since 1970, from centralized databases to FBI profiling units to task force protocols, exists partially because of how badly the Zodiac investigation exposed institutional weakness. This case is a blueprint for what happens when systems fail. And it's a reminder that most unsolved murders aren't the result of criminal genius. They're the result of institutional incompetence. The Zodiac wasn't smarter than police. He was the beneficiary of a system that destroyed itself. And in that destruction, he achieved exactly what he wanted: eternal infamy. Thank you for walking through this case with Phantom's Notes. If you found this investigation compelling, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Your theories and questions in the comments drive our next cases. Next week, The Black Dahlia, an equally chilling, unsolved Hollywood murder. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones we never see coming.